Hey everybody, I'm Greg Bosson, president of QuickBooks Made Easy for Nonprofits, coming at you with the first tip for April 2024. Yesterday was April Fool's Day, by the way, for any of you that care. But anyway, it is April 2nd today. And today's tip is specifically for those of you that are interested in seeing how much of the stuff that you have at the end of the month is restricted, and specifically showing it to you on the balance sheet. Now, we're going to do this both for people that are using QuickBooks Online, and then we're going to do it for people that are using QuickBooks Desktop. We'll do it both with the same recording because the technique is exactly the same. So we'll start with QuickBooks Online. So what am I talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when you look at a balance sheet. I'm going to go to a balance sheet right here. Say you're printing this out for the board. And if you look at the bottom here, the equity section, it has, yours might even say retained earnings. I like to change the name in the chart of accounts to unrestricted net assets. But what this is telling us is this is basically all the assets less the liabilities. It's basically all the assets net of liabilities that we have. So if you look at this balance sheet, we have $304,000 in assets. We owe $43,000, and there's $261,000 left for us, okay, that we can use. That's how you read a balance sheet. Well, some of that stuff is restricted in terms of, maybe the donor restricted or maybe the board designated it, whereas some of the stuff, cash and other things, you can actually use however the heck you want. And it's really important for boards to understand when they see, oh, we have $181,000 in cash, we have $85,000 in receivables, we have some prepaid, we have some fixed assets. It's really important that they understand of those assets, after you pay the bills that you've already incurred, what's left that you can use for whatever you want. And stuff that's restricted, you can't. So what I'm going to suggest that you do is create another account in your chart of accounts list to track restricted net assets. So I'm actually going to go to my chart of accounts list. And again, we'll do this in the desktop version in a second. And you'll see what I have is I have a donor restricted net assets equity account. I have a board designated net assets equity account. And then the retained earnings account that was originally in QuickBooks, I just changed the name of it to unrestricted net assets. Okay. So, when I look at my balance sheet, everything, I was going to say, QuickBooks doesn't move things into multiple equity accounts. QuickBooks always shows everything that's in your current year down in equity in the net income line, and all the prior year's stuff goes in unrestricted net assets, and you can't change that. So in other words, if you want to have different equity accounts, you're going to have to do journal entries at the end of the month to kind of break out the amount of the equity that's restricted, either by a donor or by the board. So what I suggest that you do is at the end of every month, decide how much of your assets, your cash and your receivables, are restricted, and then make a journal entry to move that money out of unrestricted net assets and reclass it into restricted, donor restricted net assets. Now, how do you determine how much of your money is restricted? Well, that's by tracking restricted grants. And we actually have a webinar on that that's coming up tomorrow and the next day with Chronicle of Philanthropy. I'll show you how to sign up that for a second. But in QuickBooks Online, here's a little report here that you can get, and I'm going to show people how to do this when I have the online session, which is on Thursday. But this tells me for each of my grants how much I've gotten in, how much I've spent, and what I have left, okay? And what I have left is $83,948. So what that means is when I give this to the board, I want the board to know out of this 261, which is basically all of my assets minus my liabilities, 83,000 of that is restricted, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little journal entry. And here's my journal entry right here. I'm basically lowering unrestricted net assets by $83,948. And again, I got that number right from this report, $83,948. $83,948. You do this entry once a month. And then I'm going to credit that increases in equity account, donor restricted net assets. So I'm going to do this entry at the end of the month, right before I give the books to the board. And now I'm going to save it. All right. So when I look at my balance sheet, let's go back to my balance sheet. I have to refresh it. Let's just pick Run Report again. Now it tells me donor restricted net assets is $83,948, and the rest of what makes up this 231 or 261 is unrestricted. Now, it's a little weird because what really I would like is I would like this net income line to not be here, but QuickBooks doesn't do that. Really, you just have to add the two together to get the unrestricted. But the main thing, this is the donor restricted, okay? Some people like to have it up here. They want to have the cash accounts broken out. But really, some of your donor restricted dollars you haven't received yet. They're in receivables. So really the best way to look at this, and this is how a board would look at it, be like, okay, I've got 181,000 in cash. I got 85,000. I got a total of 300,000 after you add in the fixed assets and other stuff. I owe 43. So I've got 261 left. 83 of that's earmarked, but the rest of it is money I can spend on whatever I want to. Okay. And that's typically what boards want to know. Okay. If you are in the desktop version, let's just go back to the desktop version. The report that you would go to is a P&L for restricted grants. And I'm going to show people how to get this report and track restricted grants actually on Wednesday, Chronicle of Philanthropy. I'll show you how to sign up for it. But anyway, $83,948. Okay. And then I'll just go to the balance sheet. And where's the balance sheet? And you would just make the same journal entry in the balance sheet. I think I already have the journal entry pulled up. Let's see. Let's see. Where the heck is it? There it is right here. So here's my entry. I'll go ahead and save that. And then you'll go back here, and there it is, donor restricted net assets. And for those of you in the QuickBooks Online as well as QuickBooks Desktop, if the board designates transactions, board designations are not truly restricted, because just as the board restricted them, the board can unrestrict them. So they're more called board designated, but some boards want to see that split out as well. So here's a journal entry for that, where I move it out of unrestricted net assets and I put it into board designated net assets. I'll go ahead and save that. You're cooking with gas. And now you can look and see, okay, this is what's board donor restricted, this is what's board designated, and this is the rest that I can spend however I want. Okay. If you have more questions about this, or you just want to know how to track restricted grants, period, then if you have not taken any of my trainings before, I would suggest going to QuickBooks Made Easy, going to webinars, and there's still time to sign up. We have, with the Chronicle of Philanthropy, we're tracking restricted grants using desktop. And then on April 3rd, which is tomorrow, I think it's a 2-hour, 2.5, I'm not sure, webinar. We'll take breaks. We'll have fun. And then we're doing it again on the next day, which is the 4th, for those of you using online, which is probably most of you. Okay. So you can just click on here to sign up. There you go. And here's where you can get the tickets. I hope that you come. I hope you enjoyed learning about how to kind of segregate things in your equity section on your balance sheet so you can see what's restricted and what's not. And I'll talk at you later.